Hi everyone, and welcome to session number 4 of ISTQB training Test Automation Engineer. We already covered the first module, which was about the introduction to test automation and also about its objectives. Today we will be beginning our second module, which is about preparing for test automation. In this module, there are three main topics. The first one is SUT factors influencing test automation, which we will be covering in today's session. There are many factors that influence and affect our test automation, and these are SUT interfaces, third-party software, levels of intrusion, different SUT architectures, and size and complexity of the SUT. Now let's have a look at each one of them in detail. The first one is SUT interfaces. When we are testing any SUT, like system under test, using automation, automated test cases are developed which calls on actions on the SUT. In order to achieve this, SUT must provide interface through which the system under test can be controlled and automated test can be executed. Now this can be done through different ways. For example, we can use UI controls, and an example of UI control can be GUI, graphical user interface, or lower levels interfaces. Example of that can be API, application programming interface, or communication level interface. In that, it can be TCP, IP, which can be network interfaces, or it can be USB, like a plug and play interface, or proprietary messaging interfaces, for example, Microsoft Exchange Server. Okay, so we learned about different test levels in our foundation certification syllabus. So let's have a look at a complex SUT. So if we decompose the SUT, the complex SUT, it allows the test automation to interface with SUT on various test levels. So what does decomposition of SUT means? So it means that we are decomposing a complex system into subsystems and then components. And then what happens that we can plan our testing at different test levels. It is possible to automate the test on a specific level, for example, component and system level, but only when the SUT supports this adequately. So yes, it is possible to automate at different test levels, but it also means that the SUT needs to support that, and that's why if it's a complex SUT, then decomposition of SUT helps in automating at various levels. For example, at component level, there may be no user interface that can be used for testing, so different software interfaces, also called test hooks, need to be available. Alright, so what are test hooks? So hooks basically allows to pull complex behavior out of the components into concise functions, and which makes testing easier. Okay, so the second point is third-party software. Often SUT also includes software provided by third parties. This third-party software may need testing, and if test automation is justified, it may need a different test automation solution, such as using an API. Okay, so now this is the second factor which influence test automation. So it's not always that we are building all the products or projects in-house. Sometimes it can be built by a third-party company, or maybe we are just using a third-party software. Okay, and because it's a third-party software, then it means that maybe if we need to automate testing, then the solution which we are using, the automation solution, might not work for that. We might need to come up with some another approach or the framework itself altogether, or there can be many other ways which we need to identify that how we can automate that. And an example is given like an API. Moving on to the third one, levels of intrusion. So let's first have a look at what does that mean. So levels of intrusion means the level to which a test object is modified by adjusting it for testability. Okay, so if we need to automate any system, then of course either it needs to be testable, or we need to make few modifications so that it is able to automate. So different test automation approaches using different tools have different levels of intrusion. The greater the number of changes that are required to be made to the SUT specifically for automated testing, the higher the level of intrusion. So if changes in interfaces are made for automated testing rather than using existing UI elements, then definitely it does require a higher level of intrusion. Testing with a high level of intrusion is usually a simpler solution for the test automation approach. Okay, so sometimes if we are testing something, maybe manually it's fine, but if we are automating it, then we need to modify few things in the system so that we can automate it easily. So it works very well for test automation approach because it makes it simple to automate the testing, but there is a drawback as well. The problem with higher levels of intrusion is the risk for false alarms. The TAS test automation solution can exhibit failures that may be due to the level of intrusion imposed by the test, but these are not likely to happen when the software system is being used in a real live environment. Okay, so now what does that mean is that there is a system, and just to automate its testing, we have made so many changes in it that after those changes, when we are automating and when we are testing, sometimes we can come across some issues, some defects, which might seem like that it's issue in the system, but actually it's not an issue in the system. It's an issue because of the level of intrusion which we have caused due to the test automation changes. And these are the false alarms. These are the issues which will not actually will happen in live environment, because of course in production those kind of changes will not be there which we have identified, or those defects which we have identified because of our test automation solution. So let's have a look at an example. So let's imagine we have a system under test and there is a GUI, graphical user interface, and at the back there are private APIs as well. So there are some public APIs which are publicly exposed, and then there are some private APIs as well. Okay, so let's imagine that we have our test automation solution which will test the graphical user interface, right, and which works perfectly fine. But there can be a scenario where due to some reasons we are not able to automate the graphical user interface. Then what we will do in that case, we will find another route and we will try to automate private APIs. Okay, so now in order to automate that, what we have to do, we have to use some mock objects, and which will let us automate that, but it might give us few results which are not true, which we might think are the issues, but actually they are not issues in the system. They are issues because of the level of intrusion we have made for our test automation. And actually in live, when actual users will use that system, they will not find those kind of issues. So this is what we meant by false alarm. So what does that mean? That if we have different architectures of different systems, then our test automation solution, TAS, needs to be different for them as well. Let's have a simple example. If we are testing manually, and we have two projects, one we are doing as a waterfall model and the other one is using agile, then even for that as well, our test strategy would be completely different, because the model is completely different. The same applies for automation as well, that if we are using different architectures for different systems, then the solution which we are preparing for the test automation, that needs to be compatible with that as well. Number 5 is size and complexity of the SUT. Consider the size and complexity of the current SUT and plans for future development. For a small and simple SUT, a complex and ultra-flexible test automation approach may not be warranted. A simple approach may be better suited. Conversely, it may not be wise to implement a small and simple approach for a very large and complex SUT. Right. So whenever we are planning testing for any SUT, of course, we see that what's the current size and complexity of that system. But we also need to take into account about what kind of changes may happen in future in that system, how that system will be evolved, because based on that, then we need to make sure that our test automation solution also works for that. It is aligned to that. It can support that. We don't want a very complex strategy for our test automation if the system is very simple, very small, and maybe will not be using it a lot after that. So it's not worth spending that much effort and making it so complex. And on the other hand, there might be a system which is quite small and simple right now, but going forward it will evolve. So that's why our test automation solution, whatever the framework which we are using for test automation, should be able to evolve with it. It should be scalable so that it can support that system going forward as well. We don't want that after a year or so we say that all the effort we put in test automation that was in vain, because now it can't support it anymore. So at times, though, it is appropriate to start small and simple even for a complex SUT, but this should be temporary approach, and we will discuss it in more detail in module number 3. Okay, so these are the all factors which actually affects test automation. When SUT does not exist. Okay, so now these factors which we discussed so far, they are known and they are applicable if SUT is already available. But most of the time, test automation development should start before SUT is available. So when this happens, several things need to be estimated, or the TAE, test automation engineer, can specify the software interfaces that are needed. Even when the SUT does not yet exist, test automation planning can start. Yeah, that's completely true. So even when the system is yet not started or it's not developed, so we can always start test automation planning, because we The system is not in front of us, but we do know what to expect in the system. So we can start our planning, we can start working on our strategy, that what kind of strategy it would be, what would be our approach for test automation. So we can do all that planning beforehand. For example, when the requirements, functional or non-functional, are known, candidates for automation can be selected from those requirements together with identifying the means to test them. Planning for automation can begin for those candidates, including identifying the requirements for the automation and determining the test automation strategy. Exactly. So once we have access to the requirements, when we are going through the requirements, automatically we are also thinking about our testing strategy. And when it comes to automation, we do think about that from these requirements, what we can automate and what we can't automate. And the things which we can automate, then we can start planning that what would be our approach and how we will automate it. So this is something which we can do prior to the availability of SUT. And the second example would be when the architecture and technical design is being developed, the design of software interfaces to support testing can be undertaken. Okay, so yeah, that was all for today's session. I hope you found it useful. In our next session, we will continue with the second topic of module number 2. If you like this video, please press the like button and also subscribe to my channel so that whenever there is an updated video, you can get the notification. I will see you in the next session. Till then, take care.